to the watch. With regards to the detachment assistants, as of Wednesday last week, one of our detachment assistants took another job. We're in the process of staffing that. I've got the RCMP PSHR staffing looking into providing me some names so that we can make a selection. With regards to the court liaisons, I'll be out in Truro tomorrow conducting interviews for that job. The Experienced Police Officer Program. So it's no secret. It's not that we poach. It's that officers are fairly transient now because of wage parity between different organizations. We managed to score, and I say score because these are really strong police officers. 4 members from the Halifax Regional Police, Constable Pryor, Constable Marchand, Constable Lucas, and Constable Brodsky. 2 of them are already working. 1 will be starting as early, I believe, by this month, and Constable Brodsky will be starting next month. We have 2 transfers out. Constable Redden has come in, and Constable McDermott will be coming in. We're expecting, I think I might have met him this morning. We're expecting him to land this month. Reservists still working with us, Constable Violet McFarland. And the discussion, I guess, that we'll have is 24-hour policing now that we've got all these resources in place. I've already talked about the vacancies. I'll pass over to Scott so he can cover the operational side of things here.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the turn to speak. Welcome, Staff Sergeant Balmacede. It's really nice to, even though you wear many hats in the RCMP, it's nice to see everybody in their substantive positions. Allows us to really streamline more focusing, because every time you're acting wearing multiple hats, yeah, sometimes you get things done and covered, but it's not as efficient as far as I'm concerned. So the Staff Sergeant spoke to moving. The reason we're doing a little bit of shuffling with the school position is because that member that's normally in the schools, Constable Ormond's, he's off work right now. So we have a commitment to the community-based model, which is our community policing officer, Constable Burns, who has been doing, since school started, he's been doing some of that work. But the importance of having an officer going around to the schools, direct line of communication to us as the senior officers and the school systems is paramount. So we got to take a member off the watch, it's going to be Constable Andrew Willett. He lives in the community. He's been a senior officer in the detachment for years. I think he's going to be very effective in that role. So we're hoping to transition him as early as next week, hopefully, if everything falls in place. So come along with that community police model is that they're going to start doing some exercises in the school with the Code Blue system. That's a safety plan. And just to see how effective it is. Actually, that was pushed forward by the school, and we're going to, again, assist them. We have to see what the responses are for that. Our community policing officer, as you can well imagine, in a community this size and it's growing, we have repeat calls for service, or what we call habitual callers, or certain addresses, certain types of things that go on that just seem to repeat over and over. And that so we put that on Constable Burns, or the community policing officer, and actually he's made some inroads on some of our frequent flyers. We still have some other habitual problems, as we all aware, in through the county with ATVs and dirt bikes and all this stuff. So he's kind of spearheading that, even though we got some plans that we're going to put in place for that stuff. Crime prevention group, when that starts up again here, probably October, or end of this month, October, we participate in the service providers meeting. Seniors, no solid plan for that, but it's definitely going to be on my plate to push something of that, because I want to see more senior engagement. Already spoke to the schools. First responder meeting, we came out of our EMO, but we're going to, we do go to the fire meetings as much as we can, but we want to kind of see if we can tighten that up so we have always have somebody inclusive from our detachment. EMO, that goes with things. Sports, more of our members are continuing their engagement in the local community. Several of the officers are highly involved with hockey, basketball, and other sports, so we'll push that again. And of course, as I've heard from councilor members, trying to push getting the members out of the cars, local drop-ins, whether it's the local corner store, restaurant, business, or whatever, get them in and out of the cars, just talking. I like to see that. Coming to the detachment in January, weathering the spring and summer with our resource capability was not easy. The members did an excellent job with what we were provided. We had to bring in extra duty members at no expense to the municipality. We weathered it. We got through it, and I'm looking forward to the fall, and I hope I don't jinx anything. With the additional 6 officers, it's going to make a huge difference in trying to get some more of these goals in place. As we move forward there, yeah, thank you. Some concerns I've been seeing, fully engaged in the detachment now for a better part of 7-8 months. Our biggest areas we're seeing is mental health calls, wellness checks. They've gone way up. Like, I don't know if the medical system or whatever is reliant on us, and we're getting so many of those calls. Just simply checking on people, which we'll do. Safety is paramount. We want to make sure public safety, and we'll do it. But we've seen a significant increase in that, like significant. And we'll talk about that when you see some of the numbers. Motor vehicle collisions and crashes, they still happen. We were just talking about it, you missed it this morning, Norval, in the gym, talking about our driving public and why we have that. So we're going to focus on that. The volume of traffic on the 214, the number 2, the 102, 215 is way up. So hopefully we're going to have some conversations in relation of maybe for future traffic control. We'll want to play a role in that, obviously being the police agency, and we'll see how that goes. Vehicles and theft, we've seen that. That's kind of a spike. What I'm seeing, we're getting more and more of the city stuff coming out here. It's going to be a trend. I don't know if we'll try to counteract that. I think that's just with population increase and growth, that's just a natural thing happening. So these thefts, vehicles from the Rodden area, Gore area, the business park, break and enters, they're all from the city. Fortunately, in all those cases, we've been managed to make arrests. We'd like to see it prevented, so we're going to have to start talking about more prevention aspect of that, because the vehicle thefts, and it was high as last time I checked, 95% of them had keys in them and open doors. So that makes it pretty easy. Crimes of opportunity, I know you probably heard that from me before, that's preventable. They go around and they want the easy targets, right? We should be able to live in our communities with our doors open, windows open, and all that stuff, and we still can. I still believe we can do that to a point, but your risk of victimization is increasing. ATVs, I know if I start looking around the room, everybody has that problem. We did manage to seize some, and it's a community thing with some parental elements. We're going to seize them, but we're also not going to chase down a 13-year-old and run them off the road and hurt them. It just isn't going to happen. So we're looking at some other focused elements of, we've taken them from the properties and I've held on to these, but they'll pay they go back, they do it again. So, and of course, talking about that visibility piece, I'm a big believer of red and blue lights in all the communities around East Hants. Make the traffic stops, do the check stops. I've put in expectations on all my corporals to their members that you hopefully will be, when I talk to anybody personally, you'll see a continued increase. Even in the last 2 weeks, school helps because we really try to put a push with the school buses and stuff. We've seen a significant increase in the enforcement side and the check stops. And of course, what comes out of that, one of the members working got a traffic stop, got a gun off the street. That's what happens. Stop cars, talk to people, police, things happen. APP, this is kind of, I know Corey and I talked about this way back. There's a new system for the RCMP. I'm not going to get too into that because it'll take a lot of time, but we're still focusing on the crime reduction, which includes the CSO, what that is, the conditional sentence orders, the people that are serving sentences in their houses, basically. So we're going to push doing more checks, because if we're not checking on them, it kind of defeats the purpose of doing your sentence in your house. You'll see East Hants Most Wanted sometimes in the Laker and in the media. We kind of focus on somebody's, we might be looking for them, so there might be a warrant for their arrest. So we'll have the community help us out on that. It seems to work, because almost everyone we put in there, well, surprise, we get them. Strategic enforcement, I made that thing. Road safety, the same stuff I'm talking about, that hasn't changed. But internally, employee wellness, like I said, we really went through the spring, summer, treading water. So we really want to see our members get their leave, work-life balance, resource, because a healthier employee is a better employee, and hopefully keeps them working and on the road. So, and that community engagement. We'll flip over to some of the good old numbers here. Went through this. You'll see in the bracket, that's, I think it's self-explanatory that the number is the number for this quarter with what the increase was from the same quarter same period of time last year. So you'll see crashes and collisions are up 25%. Traffic, there's impaired drivers actually was down, which I think that's not down due to less people drinking and driving. I think that was down because we weren't targeting or check stops or those traffic stops. So I think that was directly related to less of those initiatives. SOTs were up. I did make the reminder to do that little check box for the municipality. Warnings. I have no problem with, I know people say, oh, gee, that's a lot of warnings, so that could be tickets or whatever. Not all offenses. It's about stopping vehicles, talking to people, changing behavior. Harassment threats up a little bit, 18%. Assaults up 14%. Sexual assaults are down, which that's good. Mental health down. Mental health calls were down, but I should have broke that down because there's another scoring, which I didn't put on here. Back to those wellness checks, they are up like crazy, like 300% or something like that. Mental health calls are down, but that fluctuates. Theft under and over, that was down. Theft of motor vehicle, there's your spike of 56%, same time last year. Mischief seems to stay steady. Fraud up a little bit, break and enter, minor. Well, I did put the wellness checks, 22%, but over the whole averaging of that, in terms of from last quarter, this is the same period last year, but from last quarter, it's significant. So for the whole quarter, it was 1,664 calls, which is pretty rocking amount of business. And especially where we'll have a watch of 5 members working, we were averaging 3, 4, 2, 3. So they worked hard. And I'm not going to get into the 3-year average. Those numbers are there if anybody wants to discuss them. But there you'll see the 3-year average. We usually have about 1,300 calls, so we went 1,600 some calls up. Flying through that, because being a Cape Breton, I can talk lots. Any thoughts or questions that came out of that brief update or concerns? And of course, always open door policy with us if people want to contact us after the meeting today. But I'll throw it out to the floor if you got any questions for the staff sergeant or myself, or we'll go from there.
All right, we've heard the report, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much for it. I'll now open the floor to comment or questions. First up, Councillor Eisner.
Thank you for the report. It's good. What's your take on the speed? I know that's one of the numbers. What do you take on the speed? Changing the numbers?
Changing the speed limit numbers, you mean?
There's going lower.
Yeah, there's studies and some communities put speed bumps and reduction of speed limits and posted radars. Communities have bought those devices themselves. In other areas, we don't tend to have a lot of that around East Hants, but people are always going to be in a rush. Like to change that behavior, it's a prevention education piece with a mixed enforcement to change that behavior. But to answer your question, I think it could help. but people are still going to say if it's 25, we're going to go 35, 45. It's that mentality that is there to the posted speed limit is always going to be relevant to a number, if that makes any sense. I know it sounds like I'm spinning a little bit, but.
It's just that some of the residents say, well, it speeds too fast here. So can we change the number? I don't know if that turns it down, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's you're going to have. I think you're better. Nobody likes them, but they work. Is these speed bumps, like they or what do they call them? Traffic something.
But
speed
can
humps. Is that what they're calling them? Yeah.
But you can only do that in subdivisions, not
Yeah,
on
not on your main roads. Yeah.
roads.
Yeah, we're seeing it. Volume sometimes. Volume of traffic will control itself sometimes. And again, talking about volume on the secondary bigger highways, 214, 215, 236, all these and number 2. We do enforcement there, but we also see what we contribute to it, because I'm out in usually the unmarked car sometimes, and oh my jumpins, you pull over a car in the number 2 and now you've backed it 5 miles back and now you've created traffic hazards yourself. So it's like, oh, like for that, but it's a balance. Education, we just got to keep, like, as much as we talk to people, and we have to continually push education, and it's going to be hard because the media's not going to play, but you'll see media like stunting and stuff always makes it into the media, and that's just a reminder, oh wow, somebody's going this speed, but we're open to suggestions. Enforcement, obviously being a police agency, but the areas of focus where we're doing is the crashes and collisions, and surprisingly sometimes they do correlate with speed and sometimes they don't. The speed definitely plays a factor on the big series highways and the secondary highways, but your risk of injury is higher at higher speeds. So, but yeah, it's a tough one. I wish I had a magic answer and solution, but
Thank you.
continuation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first question deals with fireworks. What is your take on the fireworks and the complaints that people are complaining that the fireworks are going at all hours of the night? And do you guys enforce? So if somebody calls, you go out and visit, or?
Yeah, no, they usually come in to us as noise complaints or possibly shots fired or something of that nature because of the sound and stuff. Best way, I believe, is through the municipal noise bylaw for after hours, unless there's going to be a restriction within the municipality of sale of such items. I think that's the only way you eliminate that. But we will go to the calls and determination, but there's limited things to work with to stop them from doing it. We unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but fortunately, we have to work within the rules of the game we have. So without, noise bylaws are easy. You're setting them off after the time, no, or you can face this. 5 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday and they start doing it and somebody doesn't like them, we're very limited. There is mischief under the Protection Property Act, but that's it will waste taxpayers' time trying to enforce that because it just won't hold up. Yeah.
Second question I have, it deals with human trafficking. Is those numbers up?
Human trafficking side? Oh, that's a good question. I don't really know. I'd have to do some homework. Maybe the staff sergeant can talk to them.
I can speak to a provincial strategy that we have. So provincially, we have a human trafficking unit that now has, I believe, 3 or 4 employees. One of them might be a civilian in there. And part of the strategy that they have is if we get human trafficking complaints through our database, they are monitoring these, and we can also ask for extra help with regards to it. So if you know of any human trafficking issues out there, bring it to our attention, and I can certainly flag it for the human trafficking unit. They don't just look at enforcement as well. They look proactively at human trafficking units, so they will be out looking for people at risk of being human trafficked. They have the expertise. I'm going to be honest, our general duty members, for the most part, do not have the expertise to proactively seek that out. They can make the referral to the human trafficking unit, and they'll be out to look at it.
That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. First of all, welcome, Staff Sergeant. Good to see you again, Scott. Yeah, it's been a busy summer. I know I've had conversations with different officers and about how busy the summer was. And visibility is key. I can tell you there was a traffic stop for speeding in front of one of the convenience stores in Mount Uniacke the other day. And when that car, I happened to be there coming out, and when the car pulled over, the other car in front of it pulled over too, thinking it was the one getting caught for speeding. And the visibility of that in a full parking lot of people seeing the speed being enforced, that stretch along the number 1 is extremely busy, especially where the bridge was out in Ashdale and the one in St. Croix Eller's House. A lot of the traffic's been diverted. They go through the crossroad number 3 and come down and through. So that with that new speed limit, it's good to see it being enforced, because I've received quite a few calls of saying the speed limit's 70, people are still driving 120. You know, when am I going to start seeing people being pulled over? In the last month or so, they've seen it, which I want to say thank you, and it is being noticed. And keep up the good work, because that's the only way that you're really going to see a change in behavior. As soon as you guys come to any community, it's all over social media, right? So a lot of the times, the stops and the checks, and even that gets the effect, because people are putting out on social media that you guys are there doing a check. People will slow down, so they do slow down for that period. It'd be great to see some of those come back, especially just to remind people, which is good. But seeing some of the cars being pulled over definitely does have an effect. And I was talking to one resident about a month ago who thanked you guys for what you did in dealing with some of the off-road vehicles. And she said anytime you guys want to pop in, she'll bake you some baked goods or give you some tea or coffee if that means you'll come back more often. I said I don't think you have to do that. They'll be around. They're a little short-staffed, but they're working hard. So on those things, I'd like to say thank you. On the other side of things, lots of thefts. A lot of crime happening to vehicles in the carpool parking lot. One individual parked his truck there for the day, and somebody stole his tailgate right off the back of his truck, right? So the carpool parking lot is becoming a lot more full of cars than it has in the past, because with carbon tax and the cost of driving, some people are actually taking the initiative to carpool. With that, there's been an increase of thefts, vandalism, and things being done around there. So that's a hot area to kind of look at, because it's an easy target. It's right off the highway, right? You can do your crime and be gone. Same reason why the Irving has been robbed at gunpoint and things in the past, because it's an easy off the highway. Moving on with that is going to be, again, the business parks, right? There's been noticing of suspicious vehicles lurking around. And I've talked to some people in the process of building homes, and they're doing everything they can to protect their building supplies,
Lumbers,
because that had a big spike at the beginning of the summer. I haven't heard much at the end of the summer, but we're hitting into the fall cycle where people are going to be trying to get more supplies on the ground quicker to get them done. So that could become an area of problem throughout the whole municipality, because we have building going on everywhere. So maybe if understanding where there is a lot of housing development going on might help you guys just in your patrol routes and things like that. I've also tried to push a lot of people to call the non-emergency line in Rawdon with their complaints. That they call me, right? But if I want them to also be calling you, so you guys can start getting some of the numbers. Because 20 people call me and I call you, it's, you guys always take it seriously and you always act on it. But if those numbers continually go into your call center there, you can then have those numbers say, okay, yeah, this is not an isolated incident. This is something that is happening more often.
Or you can
than not.
identify a trend or something like that.
And they have better information than I do. They're telling me their complaint. That this way here, if you have to follow up with them, they can give you better details on time of day, vehicle color, and descriptions than I can, saying there was a shady character that was there. They think was between 125 and 185 pounds. Well, that's a huge difference. So, but no, keep up the good work. Look forward to engaging with you, Staff Sergeant, and continuing relationship with you, Scott. And you're always welcome to pop by Mount Uniacke anytime. And if you're ever out in the area and you want a tour or you want to have a conversation, just hit me up on the phone. Thank you. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Next up, Councillor Sandra
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just speaking on behalf of all the residents that have been contacting me and staff as well. I'm a staff in a school. Just wanted to touch on the busing situation that's been going on. Not sure, obviously, you look like you're aware of it. And I mean, they've reduced the number of buses, but primarily the issue is that they have reduced service for the 1.6 kilometers from the school. I don't think this was ongoing the last time you came for your quarterly report. So just wondering, you know, from your opinion, with the volume 2023, the volume of traffic on the number 2 is, you know, has increased so much since they, I guess it's that they are enforcing this rule now that has actually been in place for decades, I would say, but it's just now that they're enforcing it because of the busing issue. So between the volume of traffic on the number 2, in the rural areas, it's that the speeds are much higher, no shoulders to walk on. The crosswalks, well, the lack of crosswalks on the number 2 right through the corridor area, as well as the trunk highways. You know, we've got a serious lack of crosswalks. The condition of the sidewalks, once the weather starts to deteriorate, you know, those sidewalks will not be, chances are they will not be cleared by the time school starts. If you were consulted, would you agree that there is a safety issue in 2023 due to these factors? You know, if CCRCE were to consult you, or, you know, if parents reached out, what would your take on it be?
You want to go first? I would say that there's a risk anyways on any of these roadways, right? You only amplify that by putting a bunch of kids in those areas, which it speaks exactly to your point that yes, there is a safety concern, but it's a multiple hat-owned issue, right? Enforcement's not the only way to fix this. There's other things with regards to the municipality or the county ponying up and providing safe places for kids to wait for buses. Also, it's incumbent on the school boards to provide safe access to the school to and from, right? And that includes being picked up by the bus. And there's also a bit of responsibility that falls, not a bit, a lot of responsibility that falls on parents. Being a parent myself, I know for a fact that my kids don't wait for the bus without me waiting with them, right? Just to make sure that they are staying safe. But I'm 100% agreeing with you. It's as a parent,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you that the risk that already exists is amplified by the fact that there are more children around.
And I think with this new issue that they are actually having to walk these 1.6 kilometers, and that includes 4-year-olds because pre-primary, you know, that the expectation, parents just feel that the expectation is unrealistic and totally unsafe with nothing put in place to, you know, to initiate this. You know, there was no things that might have been put in place if they had said, well, you know what, we're going to execute this next year or 2025. In the meantime, we are going to push for sidewalks, we're going to push for this or that. But just to drop this on them, there's a lot of feeling out there that it's unsafe, and I just wondered if, you know, they would have your support. And this is all board driven, by the way. It's not, you know, it's not looking out to policing or anything to try and solve this problem. It's operational issues coming from the board that is driving this. But the result is the same, that children are being expected to walk to school in what most people are feeling is unsafe conditions.
So I'll just add that public safety is our thing, right? That's something that we are very interested in. In fact, that's what we get paid to make sure of. And if there is a public safety issue that in regards to a piece of legislation being broken or statutes not being followed, we can certainly help out in that regard. But like you had said, it's a multi-agency response, and we can certainly tow our end of the line as long as we know we have to tow it in those areas and when we have to tow it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Next up, Warden Rowe.
Thank you, and welcome to both of you, and thank you for the report. I would echo Councillor Garden Cole's comments. I think the concern around CCRCE and their busing or lack of it is extremely widespread. I don't know, I suspect there are issues in other areas of the province. But it all seems to be more about budgetary issues and that than actually providing a service which our residents pay a huge amount of money for through their provincial income tax and through their municipal property tax. And I sent an email off to the head guy at CCRCE the other day when I went to pick my granddaughter up from school because she's 1.3 kilometers from the school. She's 5. And there's no place in Rawdon District Elementary, there's no drop-off loop. There's no place on the school property to park while you pick children up or drop them off. You're on the shoulder of a road, and if you leave enough space to get a child in and out of the car on the ditch side, your car is out in the traffic lane. And if you pull off completely on the shoulder, then you're getting in and out of the car in the traffic. And it is concerning. Haven't had a response yet, but squeaky wheel sometimes gets the grease, so I'm not done. But it is concerning. And the problem, I think, is that they're not breaking their statutes or their rules. It's just that those distances that they're operating under are archaic in this day and age with the amount of traffic on the road and the speed of that traffic and the conditions of the shoulders of the roads. And there are many places, the shoulders aren't good at the best of times. There are many places since that storm in July that if there's no shoulder to walk on, and if your wheel dropped off the edge of the pavement in places, you would be done. And I don't know what the answer is, and I know you folks can't solve it, but I suspect Councillor Garden Cole's point, and probably mine, is that it would add weight to our concerns were they supported by the RCMP, and that's what we're hoping for, is that you know, that there would be concern about some of these safety issues and that the RCMP would support those concerns. And I think that goes a long way with folks, and it's not quite as easy to brush that aside as it is grandma here and mom over there and those types of things. Secondly, just this is September. I don't know how we got to September so quickly. But I just want to throw an invitation out there, should you have anyone available on Remembrance Day. And I know the RCMP do take part around the area in Remembrance Day services as they're able. In my memory, there is always a Remembrance Day service and a walk in West Gore, from the West Gore Church of Disciples to the monument at the corner in West Gore. And I know it's been mentioned times and it just hasn't happened, but the 2 local fire departments both participate in all the churches and the Cubs and Beavers, and you know, there's usually a pretty good turnout. And so if there was anyone available on Remembrance Day, that starts at a little bit before 11, so that we're at the Grove at 11 for the little service and the laying of the wreaths on the monument. And we'd love to see someone attend if operations allowed that. Other than that, I guess not a lot of sea change recently. So just happy to see that the plan is in place to engage with the first responders in that. I think that'll be appreciated, and look forward to continuing good partnership that we have with the RCMP. Thank you.
All good. All right, next up for CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention, we, for council and probably Staff Sergeant Balmaced's benefit, our staff in economic and business development work with the RCMP quite often in sort of making sure that the businesses in the community are getting the attention they deserve. Excuse me. And need. And I just wanted to pass along our thanks to the RCMP. I know there's been some recent arrests in the business park. There was a rash of thefts in the business park. Both Mount Uniacke and Elmsdale, I know there's been some increasing in patrol, and I think council would always encourage that. But thank you very much for the attention you're paying to the businesses in East Hants, and our staff and our business owners appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Seeing no one left to speak, I would like to welcome the new staff sergeant. I look forward to working with you in the future, and maybe we can get together and have a conversation. With regard to the school board, or with the school and busing situation, in my opinion, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we do not have an elected school board of the area. Decisions are being made on busing, and I know there's other circumstances that take place, but they're being made at a level far away from our municipality. And if we had elected officials who lived in the community, maybe they could reiterate the problems they're having with this busing situation and put a personal note to it, because I think that's what's lacking right now, is that personal school board situation. And, but that's just my opinion. But I said that's, to me, I would hope sometime that the council can discuss this and maybe write a letter and ask for the reinstatement of local school boards. But that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, seeing nothing, no one left to speak. Thank everybody for the participation with regard to questions to our fellow RCMP. And I appreciate you coming here today, and looking forward to the next quarterly report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
That being all, I would entertain a motion for adjournment and to move toward Corporate and Services Committee, which will be chaired by Deputy Warden Perry. Moved by Councilor Green, seconded by Councilor Mitchell. All those in favor? Contrary of mine, motion is carried. Thank you very much, people.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call the Corporate Residential Services Committee to order. We'll be looking for the approval of the minutes from July 18th, 2023. Moved and seconded by Councilor Musa. All those in favor? Motion carries. First up, we have new employee introductions. Well, they're probably not here yet because we're a little bit ahead of schedule. Yeah. We can come back to that. Okay. Go ahead, CAO.
Leanne will be here, Jesse? No?
Okay.
Okay, well then I'll introduce them. So councillors, we do have two new staff with us since you've last met. Mike Barrett is a building official intern. So as John just mentioned, he's on training this week, doing his NS-BOA training, which is the certification for building inspectors in Nova Scotia. Mike has joined us from the Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education, where he worked as a Red Seal carpenter. He's got an extensive construction background, and as you all know, the building official pool in Nova Scotia of fully trained building officials is limited. So Mike has joined as an intern, and he will be working towards his NSBOA certification to become a full building inspector over the next several months. So we're very excited to have him, and we hope that he has a very long and prosperous career with East Hants. The other introduction, Leanne Nunn probably needs no introduction to this group. Leanne has worked with us for the better part of, I think, 10 years in our engineering department. She's also covered a few maternity leaves over the last few years in solid waste. And Leanne has joined us as supervisor of solid waste operations. So she will be looking out at the Waste Management Center and doing all of the managerial and administrative work that needs to be done there, which will give our manager of solid waste some capacity to focus more on our larger strategic solid waste needs. So we're very excited to have Leanne back on full-time with our staff. She has a lot of experience with East Hants, and she also holds a master's in environmental studies from Dalhousie. So a great addition to the long-term team at the Waste Management Center. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, CAO. Next on the agenda, sees there is no employee position changes this month, and employee recognitions will be done in October. So we're going to move on to item 17, the 2023 NSFM Fall Conference selection and delegation. Alana's going to take this one.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here to present the report for the 2023 NSFM Fall Conference. So this year, NSFM is hosting the Fall Conference in Halifax again at the Westin from November 7th to the 10th, 2023. So last year, as you might remember, it was held in person at the Westin, and we had delegated the CAO, Warden, and Councillors Tingley and Eisner to attend. So this year, we have budget to send the Warden, CAO, as well as 3 other council members, as well as book 5 rooms for this fall. NSFM has released the schedule for the fall conference, and on September 11th, Shirley sent it to councillors via email. Just to give you an outlook on what the schedule pertained, we would like to have delegates registered before the 10th for the early bird fees. And we are looking for 5 people interested in going. So if there's any questions, please ask. Or if you'd like to put your name forward, we are more than welcome to write you down.
Thank you. So now I'll be putting it out to council to see if anybody would like to volunteer or is interested in partaking and joining the Warden and the CAO at the NSFM Fall Conference. And we have crickets. Oh. Councillor Tingley.
To the chair, I think these conferences are really great to attend if you can. I've gone to a couple over the last couple of years, and I'll go again this year if there is an opening. That's about all I got to say.
Well, judging from my screen, you're more than welcome to go.
Okay. Okay.
Councillor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll put my name down.
Okay. So that's 2 people. I got to step out there for a second, Councillor Hebb. We're just looking to see if anybody's interested to go to the NSM Fall Conference. Okay, you're busy. Councillor Eisner.
Yes, I would attend to it, but other people should belly up first, maybe, I don't know. It's very knowledgeable stuff. I get a lot of streets information from it.
I think one of the barriers to this right now is that it's during the middle of the week, and some other counselors with their day jobs are unable to get the time off to go. That's a barrier for some.
I would join the other two counselors to go to it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Eisner. All right. So we'll be looking for a recommended motion with the names of the warden, the CAO, Councillor Tingley, Councillor McPhee, and Councillor Eisner. Is anybody prepared to make that motion? Go ahead, Councillor Tingley.
I'll make that motion,
Just read it out so it's,
that the CAO, the warden, Rolston, Councillor Eisner, Councillor McPhee, and myself attend the NSFM conference, fall conference.
all right.
And I'd just like to add that I wouldn't be staying in overnight. I don't need a hotel or anything like that.
If, for any of the arrangements and anything, you can touch base with Atlanta afterwards for all those who are going, and anything you have to adjust, you can do it there. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Musa. Any discussion to the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. I still got 2 people left to vote. Oh, okay, fair enough. All right, the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you, Alana. Looking at the time. Councillor Mitchell.
Looking at the schedule, and if there's a gap, could we take the break now and continue later?
Does that make sense? Is that good to the will of council? Would council like to take a break right now? And then we'll resume at 10:15 for the presentation from the community climate capacity? We could actually do the code of conduct and then be on schedule and take the break after the climate. What's the will of council? Just keep going? Okay, push the break off. All right, CAO.
Sorry, new computer. So, councillors, you would have all gotten an email individually in your inbox by email from Andrea Jeffs, who has released the final review for councillors on the code of conduct that the province has been creating, a standard code of conduct across the board for all municipal councillors. We have been actively involved in the discussions around the code of conduct, mostly at sessions, NSFM conference sessions and whatnot. We've also provided feedback in writing on the code and the previous iterations. They've done pretty extensive consultation on the drafts up to this point, and this would be their final consultation. And what, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to read through the recommendations on the framework, but the document that was emailed out to us provided sort of not going through the entire document again, but provided feedback and what the committee has taken all of the feedback from consultation and changed the code again based on that feedback, and now they're looking for that final consultation to get your feedback. There isn't an opportunity here because this is individual to specific counselors. They're not looking for a council response to this. They're looking for individual elected members to fill out the survey by September 25th, and it's in your email, the link to that. What I thought I'd do this morning is just take you through, remind you that they want you to do this, and then take you through some of the places where they're looking for feedback. I will say up front, I've gone through this quite extensively. I've also filled out the survey they're looking for senior managers and elected officials to fill it out. I filled out the survey, I've given them my feedback, and with all of the issues that were brought up by East Hants councillors at the sessions that I've been to, it looks like everything has been incorporated into the new code of conduct. So things like, there's little tweaks in here, points of clarification. The one on the screen is a good example. So when does it actually apply to a councillor? Are you bound by this code of conduct before you're sworn in or only after you're sworn in? So they've made clarifications on things like that, that it's intended to be after you're sworn in because you've taken the oath of office, then you're bound by this particular code of conduct, and it would be the same across the board. So everything in here, I'm not going to go through every change that they've made. A lot of it is just based on clarification and looking for feedback on different sanctions. So for example, there was one where it said that if a councillor had to pay a fine, it would be a lien on their property like a tax would be. Well, you can't do that. So it's now says that it will be treated like a payable, and it would be payable to the municipality. A lot of it is around investigations, and a lot of the comments at the feedback was around who was going to be doing this investigation and how it was going to happen. And if there's a complaint under the code, now the way that it's written is the CAO would get notification that there's been a complaint. So council would designate someone to receive your complaints. And in the old version, it was just they would get the complaint, they would do the investigation, they would report to council, and really the municipality may not even know what was happening. So this new version, because we can't just sign a blank check for someone to do an investigation, the CAO would be notified that an investigation is starting. And then if a conversation needed to happen about resources in the municipality, then that could happen between the CAO and the investigator. And then it would come back through the channels through to council. This section is mostly around the investigator, making sure that the investigator that you choose is independent and is qualified. Again, talking about how the complaint would work. I'm satisfied that that can work for municipalities across the board, the way they have it put through. One of the things that is new, that there's a 6-month, you have to put something through within 6 months if you have a complaint against a councillor. So you may have your own personal opinions on whether this works for you as a councillor or not. From a municipal process point of view, the complaint process will work for most municipal administrations, I think. So I guess I would give you that feedback as you're looking at the at your survey. The process will work. You may have some fundamental opposition to it personally, but that would be up to you to respond in your own personal survey. Under training, so there would be training on this this code of conduct, and there would be training online. So some kind of training would be developed, which was an important part of what was missing, to make sure that if you're going to hold somebody accountable to this code, you need to make sure that they understand what they're being held accountable to. So making sure that there was consistent training across the board was important, and that was the feedback that was given. And then the proposed feedback, they're proposing that there will be a feedback mechanism for this code of conduct. So they're going to be reviewing this on a regular basis with counselors and making sure that it works for elected officials. So the appendix that was attached to the email sort of just outlines some of the changes that were made, so you can go and take a look at that. There was only one place that I thought the change was, and I provided this input for them, but it was around staff relationships with, staff relations with council and how those two interact. And I think what they've done is there's a section where the intent of the code of conduct was to prevent counselors from intimidating staff. They've changed it to, the wording is changed, so it's more of a diversity and inclusion element to it. So I think that changed the intent of the code of conduct. So I think this is the one here where it says members of council must not make public statements reflecting negatively on identifiable groups of individuals. My feedback to them was that they could clarify that. Is that, because it was to staff. So is that staff, or is that a more of that diversity inclusion lens? So we'll, again, you can make your own comments and draw your own conclusions, but that was probably the only place where my comments would have been against the changes that were made. So that's a very high level overview. I think it's worth each one of you taking a read through what the code is proposing, what the committee is proposing on the code. And please ensure that you fill out the survey and give them the feedback that you need, because when this goes through, and it will be put through legislation, every council member in Nova Scotia will be held to this code of conduct. So it needs to be something that you personally could live with, holding a seat in on a municipal council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, CAO. Looking for any questions or comments? First up, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I'd just like to add, having sat in on the last consultation thing at an in-person conference, kudos to the folks working on this, because I will be honest, when I left that meeting, I did not have a good feeling of having anything workable coming out anytime soon. And pleasantly surprised to see that there were folks there who obviously were listening to the comments and that were made, and they seem to have done a significant amount of revisions and come up with something that's a workable compromise that I think most people will be able to live with. Encourage everyone to fill out the survey. Yeah, it's certainly an improvement on the last version that we presented. It does not create a new department costing tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars to hire people, hundreds of thousands. It's, it's a little more realistic than what we were first presented. And anyway, so those are just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councillor Hepp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. If a complaint comes forth where a councillor has breached the code of conduct, investigation is done, and when that comes back to council, is that going to be an open council meeting, or will that be an in-camera session?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the revised version makes it clear that would be an in-camera session, with the decision of council being made an open council.
And I thought that's what it said, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hepp. Next up, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just wanted to comment, I participated in a Zoom meeting with several wardens and the facilitator from another area of the province back when this was in the embryonic stages and when there were more concerns about it. And one comment that I made at that point was that, you know, the municipality of East Hants has been, you know, effectively dealing with this kind of thing on their own. And the facilitator said that, yes, they had heard that and were aware of our effectiveness in many areas. And I just wanted to pass that along. They had a high opinion of how the municipality of East Hants runs. So just wanted to pass that along. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Garden-Cole. And yes, we were one of the municipalities that already had a code of conduct in place before this. This came about because there was quite a few municipalities that had no code of conduct. So the province stepped in and said, everybody needs to have one, which is a good thing. Seeing nobody left to speak, fellow council members, it's up to you to have this survey filled out and passed in with your personal comments by the 25th of September. All right, that brings us to the end of that item. Do we have the person here from the community climate capacity? Go ahead, sir. Come right down. Right down at the table right here. Take a seat. Whichever one you sit at. There you go. All right. Sorry, I wasn't given your name, so I'll
No
let you
worries.
introduce yourself.
My name is Logan Horrocks. I'm the Senior GIS and Adaptation Specialist with the Clean Foundation. And in particular, we are rolling out a community climate capacity program. And yeah, you can just scroll down to the next slide there. So Clean Foundation is an environmental nonprofit founded through an act of legislation in 1988. However, we are more so a just non-governmental organization, environmental charity these days, really focused on program delivery around complex environmental problems. And so we're here to make the biggest impact for a cleaner world. This community climate capacity program is really focused on local climate action. And so as we know, municipalities and communities are on the front lines of climate change. We've experienced a series of different events in this last year, and that's only going to increase in frequency and magnitude as, you know, the years go on. And so despite the enormous scale and complexity of these problems, there are adaptation measures taking shape at the grassroots level, and we would like to foster more of that so that communities can take on the measures to protect themselves. We understand that municipalities and communities in Nova Scotia often struggle to find the resources, so the staff, personnel, and/or support that's needed to tackle these climate change issues. And so that's where this program can come in and help. So this program is funded by the Department of Environment and Climate Change Nova Scotia, and Clean Foundation will be administering climate leads or staff time for 15 communities. And those individuals, or the climate leads, will help identify climate risks, assess opportunities, and then develop and implement climate adaptation and mitigation actions. So the way that will work is one staff person will likely be, based in 3 different communities or work with 3 different communities to help those 3 communities take on climate change actions. And those staff people will be, completely paid for by Clean. They'll go through all the HR and all of that through Clean Foundation as well. And yeah, just essentially be a resource for these communities to take on whatever climate change issues are, most relevant or at, the heart of your particular municipality. So a climate lead will be assigned, to a successful recipient, and essentially with the goal of, a variety of things, but potentially helping with funding applications, on-the-ground project implementation, or other necessary policy to develop climate and sustainability considerations. And the program's really focused on building up your climate capacity so you can take action on those issues. And this will be offered, at no cost for the municipalities or the communities. In terms of the requirements, the communities will be required to have a liaison or an internal staff person that can help this climate lead navigate the municipal processes in this case. And the leads will be supported by a team of climate specialists such as myself who have expertise on climate mitigation, adaptation, resilience, asset management, or, greenhouse gas inventories. We've yet to hire the other 2 climate specialists, and we are yet to hire another 4 climate leads. So we will really shape their job descriptions and their specialties around what we hear from communities and what the needs are. We'll also provide those climate leads, myself, and potentially municipal staff with additional training opportunities as well. And so our applications are going to be opening in the fall of 2023. Here we are. It'll start with an expression of interest that we hope to have out by September 25th. And in terms of eligibility, municipal and local governments are eligible, nonprofit organizations, Indigenous organizations, and then municipal corporations or entities who are struggling to find the necessary resources to take on these works. And we are encouraging collaboration between community organizations, municipalities, and First Nations. And we are very open to joint applications. So whether or not that's 2 municipalities or a municipality and a First Nation, any combination thereof. So we are currently going around the province doing a road show, virtually most often, but sometimes we can make an appearance in person. And we really just wanted to discuss the needs or climate concerns from different communities. And that's also to help us shape sort of what this program will look like. So we are open to feedback and really hoping that you folks can, tell us your needs, your climate change challenges, and then potential opportunities that you would like to sort of capitalize on. And with that, we have a program email. It's ccc@cleanfoundation.ca, and we have a webpage on the Clean Foundation website that you can seek more information on this program. But really just trying to do a call out to different communities and get some applications in come mid-October or expressions of interest at the end of September. And we have yet to really define exactly what projects and other actions will take place. That's really for the communities themselves to decide. And with that, thank you.
Well, thank you, Logan. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your presentation. I will put it out to all members of council if they have any questions for Logan on this program. Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I have a question. One of the challenges we have here in the municipality is with flooding. Does your group assist with coming up with a plan to deal with flooding, or?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a little bit of my area, my background, and it could take a variety of shapes. So if a risk assessment hasn't been completed to date, that could be a first place to start, and try to access funding through a variety of different streams, whether it's FCM for like a feasibility study, if that's like sort of the next steps there to sort of take on mitigation actions. But yes, that is something that we could absolutely, that would be eligible for this program, and that could be looked into. And it can be, not just flooding, it can be sort of nature-based solutions, whether or not that's, wildfire prevention or mitigation, all sorts of different things, whether it's coastal flooding or inland flooding. It could be, projects around rainwater gardens to mitigate, pluvial flooding that we're experiencing more and more often. That's just sort of, one aspect, kind of a little bit of my background, but then, it could be a variety of other things, greenhouse gas inventories, asset management, the list goes on. But yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is that all, Councillor Tingley?
That's it, yeah.
Thank you. Warden Rolston.
Yes, thank you. So certainly something to be looked at, but if I'm understanding, this program is to help us gather information. Is that correct?
That could be the first stage of things. If you already have an existing climate plan and there are actions that you want to follow through, we could be assisting in getting funding to take on those actions. So it'll be a 3-year program. The lead will be not embedded, but working with the community for 3 years. And so the ideal would be that maybe year 1 is a bit around gathering funding, doing feasibility studies, and then year 2 and 3 are about actually implementing those works, and then ideally, at the end of the day, it would be fantastic to have this lead have created a full-time sort of climate role or an additional climate role within the municipality to take on the other, concerns that are going to come up.
I think, I don't think there's anywhere in the province that's not impacted by climate change. And the funding is the thing.
Yeah.
Funding is the thing. And anyway, it's certainly information. I'm sure that our staff are making notes as I look here. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. And if there's any other questions, thanks again.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Logan. Have a safe drive home. All right, council, that brings us to the end of the agenda for corporate residential services. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn to break. Infrastructure and operations, there's no public members on that, correct? So we'll take a 20-minute break and return at 10:40. Is that agreeable to the will of council? All right. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn to break, to reconvene in Infrastructure and Operations Committee at 10:40. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, second by Councillor Garden Cole. All those in favor? Aye. Motion's passed. We are now in break.
20th, 23. Moved and seconded, all in favor? And the motion has passed. First item on the agenda is the Organics Transfer Station status update, and Andrea will be taking that.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here today to talk about the Organics Transfer Station. So our operation out at the Waste Management Center, we have an Organics Transfer Station. We also have a Waste and Recycling Transfer Station as well. Our Organics Transfer Station, essentially how we operate is all the material is brought to our facility. It's stored there for a few days until it's ready to be shipped off-site in larger trucks for processing. Our transfer station has been on site since the early 2000s. But due to a number of things, normal wear and tear and increased weather events, some damage and stress has occurred at the transfer station. And unfortunately, the cover was basically damaged beyond repair. And because we had some safety issues with staff and contractors working inside the building, the remaining part of the cover and the frame actually had to come down. So that has been done. That was done earlier this year. We did have approval from Department of Environment to remove the cover because our approval requires us to have a covered building. So we're here today to have a conversation about our next steps. So one option obviously is replace the transfer station, the cover, which requires some further study to figure out what that cost will be in today's world. Another option that we have is to have another look at a past report that was provided to council about organics management in general for the municipality. Our last report was done by consultants in 2014. So that requires a quotation and approval to use some funds from solid waste reserves to have that report updated, dusted off for 2023-24 numbers. Sorry, I went too far. So our recommendation as staff is that where we're in this situation, that we have the report for organics management for East Hants updated, and we could bring that back for December executive, which would include some costing options and some direction from council on a path forward. We do have recommended motions in the report related to that. But if there's any questions on the status of where we're at.
First to speak is Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Am I correct in assuming that this report would look at other options for dealing with organics than shipping them away?
Through you, Warden. So the original report in 2014 was looking at should East Hants and when could East Hants potentially take on organics processing ourselves at the Waste Management Center. So we have a transfer station and now we don't really. So do we invest the money in fixing the transfer station, or do we look at it and say maybe we should dust off this report that's almost 10 years old and see, because where we are today versus 10 years ago is growth actually has happened. So 10 years ago we said if we grow or when we grow. We are also sending our organics currently to Guysborough County, which was new to us, whereas back when the report was done, we were sending it a few kilometers down the road to Brookfield. And where our tonnage is today versus where it was 10 years ago, and taking consideration growth. So before we would go out and say, hey, let's fix our roof, should we look at what the difference is between fixing a roof and continuing as we are, or should we look at potentially, are we at a point soon to do our own organics processing? So that's basically what we're looking at, is dusting that off and looking at it.
Move the recommended motion.
Seconded.
Okay, on before the motion, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll support the motion, no problem. But I'm just wondering, wasn't there a fire back there and that covering was damaged on that transfer station, or am I thinking of another building?
Through you, Madam Chair. So that was our recycling and transfer station, our waste and recycling transfer station. So this was like the green coverall building that is behind that building. So it kind of looks like the one in Milford, or it did when we had a roof.
Oh, I thought that was the one that was damaged in the fire.
No.
I'm sorry. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Next to speak is Councillor
Thank you, Madam Chair, through your staff. fully support the motion. In exploring the option for self-processing of organics, would we also look at the ability to then maybe have some clients and process theirs as well to help offset the cost and possibly do something like that in the future, and looking around to see where our neighbors are sending their organics or what places maybe there's overflow that has to come, and instead of paying out, we can actually receive it.
Through Madam Chair. So the answer is, the easy answer is absolutely. What has done in the past, and staff have done that in past iterations, is a regional overview as part of the report, citing who does what, where is going where. We actually have that information now, and could look at some of those things. There's different markets, and staff are well versed in this topic. There's different streams which we can go into, but there's the biomass stream, there's power plants, and then there's processing to make earth and distributing it and how you do it, and then what different types of customers are a good fit or not a good fit for what we may do or could do, or what the market yields. We will have that comprehensive in the discussion of the report.
I figured as much. I just wanted to make sure. I have all the faith in our solid waste. We have a very good record, and we are constantly leading the province in our solid waste plan every year. So I just wanted to put that out there so anybody listening can understand that every and all avenues are always being explored by our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden, if you wouldn't mind taking the chair, I'd just like to say that while the damage was unfortunate, I definitely see the value in this opportunity to go forward and to explore this. I'm excited at the prospect of what may come out of this, so thank you. And seeing no one else to speak, question's been called, and we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. And the second item that we have on the agenda is a contractual issue, and it is an in-camera item. So if I can get a motion to go in camera.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Oh, so, Counselor, Deputy Warden, did you want, or did you want?
No,
to-
I'm just on to make.
Thank you. Okay, we were in camera to discuss a contractual issue, and we have motions coming forward.
Move that the Infrastructure and Operation Committee recommend that council direct staff to register the municipality of East Hants as opting in to the provincial extended producer responsibility for packaging and paper products by the deadline of January 1st, 2024. I so move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Okay. And the motion has passed unanimously.
Secondly, I'll move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend that council direct staff to bring back a report outlining the next phase of the extended producer responsibility for packaging and paper products decisions and impacts to council in the spring of 2024. I so move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Okay, so that brings us to the end. Oh. Go ahead, Warden Ralston.
Yes, if I could, since we are ahead of schedule and we can't start PAC early because we're waiting for public members, it's not really part of this committee, but just before we adjourn, I've been told that the socioeconomic study actually should have been under corporate and residential services this morning, so we can do that before we adjourn for lunch. And was there something else that we could?
There is one of the in-camera.
There,
Could move forward.
yeah, and there is a piece that is on the docket for in-camera at council later this afternoon that could be done in-camera in corporate and residential services as well, time permitting. So I guess I'm just looking for some agreement with council that we move those items forward and use up our time to facilitate an earlier dismissal this afternoon. Thank you. So move to adjourn to go back into corporate and residential services.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.
All right. Be calling the Corporate Residential Services Committee back to order. First up, we'll have the 2021 Social Economic Study presented today by Ms. Tippy Scott.
All right, thank you. Yes, so as mentioned, I'm going to be presenting the socioeconomic study, which was prepared by the Department of Planning and Development in 2023, but most of the data is based on the 2021 census. So socioeconomic studies examine the interplay of social and economic factors within a community to help understand its current composition and to better plan for its future. The data collected in this study is based on the 2021 census conducted by StatsCan and in-house municipal records. There's a couple important data disclaimers with this report. The data sets in the study generally do not include Indian Brook 14, with the exception of the population and private dwelling stats, or as otherwise indicated. And the original 2021 census profile for East Hants produced by StatsCan incorrectly attributed a number of census responses to other regions. The data was subsequently corrected for the population and private dwelling counts only. So as a result, the population and private dwelling stats found in this report are as accurate as the amended data. However, the remaining census data sets are based on the original report and are therefore skewed. Here we're just showing a map of the population of East Hants at 24,853 in 2021, just next to some of the neighboring census subdivisions, including Colchester, Halifax Regional Municipality, and West Hants. And there's some little facts here, but I'm going to get into more detail in a little bit. This page, we're just highlighting some of East Hants' services and a couple notable pieces. For the fourth year in a row, East Hants reported the best or lowest solid waste disposal rate per capita in Nova Scotia. And there were $560,466 in municipal grants awarded for community sports and recreation over the 2021-22 fiscal year. Here we're just going to talk about population for a bit. So population by region, grouped ADA. So StatsCan produces population counts at varying levels of geography. East Hants and Indian Brook 14 are considered census subdivisions, and combined as a municipality, they were reported to have 24,853 residents in 2021. This area and the respective population counts are further broken down by StatsCan into what they call aggregated dissemination areas. East Hants is made up of 4 of these, which includes Indian Brook 14, and then as staff for this report, we then group them into 3 regions identified as the Corridor, Uniacke-Rawdon, and Shore Central regions. Then we looked at population by polling district. So the population numbers for each polling district are not produced by StatsCan. These numbers were derived by estimating the proportion of private occupied dwellings within each district, and then multiplying those figures by the total population. And on average, electors make up about 80% of each household. Looking at historic change, East Hants is a rapidly growing municipality. It saw a 5.6% increase in population over the last 5-year census period. There's average population density in East Hants is 12.6 people per square kilometer, with approximately 2.45 persons per dwelling unit, and that's in 10,152 private dwellings occupied by usual residents. There were about 1,311 people added to the municipality between 2016 and 2021, which is, as mentioned, a 5.6% increase, and that's over 4% more than the population change between 2011 and 2016. Continuing on, breaking down to those ADAs, between 2016 and 2021, the corridor region saw a growth rate of 8.1%, up from 2.9% in the previous census period. The Uniacke-Rawdon region also saw significant growth with a rate of 5.3%. And despite these increases, not all areas of East Hants are growing. The Shore Central region has actually been declining in population over time, with a negative growth rate of minus 2.7% over the last census period. And I just wanted to mention at this point, back, I believe in the spring, there was a report done by a group of Dalhousie students on the Mount Uniacke area. And they actually noted some different numbers. They had about the same growth rate for the Uniacke-Rawdon region, but unfortunately their numbers for East Hants on the whole were using the original incorrect census data. So their original growth rate for East Hants on the whole was 1.96, which obviously is significantly lower than that 5.6 that we see with the corrected data. Looking by age group, East Hants follows the provincial trend where population is aging, with 18% of the population over the age of 65, which is a 3% increase from the previous census period. The average age in East Hants of East Hants residents is 42.5, which is slightly below the provincial average of 44.2. Looking at immigration, StatsCan defines immigrants as persons who are or have ever been landed immigrants or permanent residents in Canada. In 2021, immigrants and non-permanent residents made up 3.5% of East Hants' population, including 170 people who arrived in the previous 5 years, which is nearly double that of the previous census period. East Hants' immigrant and permanent resident population accounts for 1.1% of the provincial total. Next, we did some projections for population, and there are a number of different methods that you can use to project population change. This study examined 3, including historic trend, East Hants growth as a percentage of Halifax regional municipalities growth, and growth by development. And although all of the projections vary, they all indicate that East Hants' population will continue to rise well into the future. So looking at historic trend first, this population projection is based on growth rates in the past. The average percentage of growth from 2006 to 2021 for each region was used to forecast future growth trends. This method works well for populations that tend to have even and steady growth or decline over time, but it does have its challenges, and it doesn't account for an aging population, reduced birth rate, or changes in migration. The next projection we looked at was East Hants growth as a percent of Halifax regional municipalities growth. So the Corridor and Mount Uniacke regions of East Hants are considered bedroom communities to HRM. Historically, population changes in these areas track closely to the population trends in HRM. And as such, it's useful to consider how population changes there might affect East Hants' growth. So this projection looks at the historic change in growth for both East Hants and the Halifax regional municipality combined over multiple census periods and determines East Hants' proportion of that growth. The average of those proportions is then used to determine future East Hants growth using future HRM populations, which were projected in the 2021 Halifax Regional Plan issue paper. And that paper looks at 3 different growth scenarios for HRM. There's low, moderate, and high, where the low scenario reflects an economic downturn and low immigration. The high scenario, obviously, an economic boom and high immigration. The last projection we looked at was growth by development. So over the last few years, East Hants has seen a major increase in development and with it a rise in population. Based on approved, proposed, and anticipated development applications, this explosion in growth is expected to continue well into the future. So the growth by development population projection takes the number of anticipated new dwellings multiplied by the ratio of people per dwelling and breaks the numbers out over multiple years based on anticipated reasonable build-out timelines. And you'll note for this projection, the 3 areas used are actually not the same as the aggregated dissemination areas seen prior in the report. This is looking specifically at our growth management areas, so that's South Corridor and Mount Uniacke growth management areas, and then the remainder of East Hants, because that's how we've been tracking development and estimating future populations in those areas. So then just the total number is taken for East Hants. You'll also notice in the table there are sort of blank numbers going forward, and the corridor is the only area we get out to 2041 in projections. We don't get to as far as 2051 as we do with some of the others, and that's just because this is the development that we know about, so that's what this projection is based on. So in summary of all the projections, there was an average of all the projection methods taken, which is displayed in the table and chart. The chart helps to illustrate the range of projected values for future years from 2021 to 2051. The percent of HRM low growth scenario projection method produced the lowest East Hants population by 2051 at 28,737. The average of all 5 methods projects a population of 33,196 by 2041. And the percent of HRM's moderate growth scenario projection most closely follows the average, which predicts a population of 35,882 by 2051. And we looked at some socioeconomic measures produced by the census. And socioeconomic measures may encompass a wide range of data, including economic indicators, social indicators, employment and labor market indicators, and more. And I guess I'll just note again at this point, these are some of the stats that came out of the census that were not corrected after the different reports were allocated. So first is marital status. The 2021 census reveals that 63% of the population aged 15 years and over in East Hants is currently married or living in common law, which is higher than the provincial average of 57%. Fewer people are married in East Hants compared to 2016. StatsCan reports that an aging population, growing popularity of common law unions, and an increased average age at marriage has driven a long-term decline in marriages across Canada. A record drop in marriages occurred from 2019 to 2020 throughout Canada during the first year of the pandemic. Mobility status. A person's mobility status is based on their place of residence 5 years prior to the 2021 census compared to their current place of residence. So in 2021, 20% of East Hants' population had moved to the municipality between 2016 and 2021, which is a 5% increase over the last census period. Looking at private household size, so the number of single-person households has increased by 11.6% in East Hants since the last census period. As of 2021, single-person households accounted for 24% of private households in East Hants, up 1.7% from 2016. So a slight shift towards a smaller household size may in part be due to an increased development and availability of apartments in the area. Type of household. The number of apartment buildings, as mentioned, is on the rise in East Hants, but they still only accounted for 6.3% of all households as of 2021. It's anticipated that the proportion of apartment buildings and other multi-unit dwellings will continue to rise. Single detached dwellings remain the predominant household type at 81.6%, which is above the provincial average of 63.7%. More people in East Hants are attaining high school level of education, up from 27% in 2016 to 29.6%. Of the population 15 years and older, 52.8% achieve some type of post-secondary certificate, diploma, or degree as well. And compared to the province, East Hants does have a lower proportion of people with a bachelor's degree or higher. However, East Hants residents are more likely to hold a high school degree and or post-secondary certificate or diploma than the average Nova Scotian. Income is made up of earnings, government transfers, and other monies. The 2021 census shows that the median household income before tax in East Hants is $85,000, which is up over $12,000 since 2016 and is more than the provincial median of $71,500. Income disparity between males and females can still be seen in East Hants and throughout Nova Scotia, although the gap has closed slightly over time for this region. The median income for a female East Hants resident in 2021 came in at $15,600 below that of a male. In 2016, the difference was over $18,000. Labor force is made up of persons 15 years of age and older who are either employed or unemployed but actively seeking work. Those not in the labor force might include retired persons, students, family caretakers, or those neither working nor seeking work. And despite a global pandemic, the participation rate in East Hants' labor force remained relatively steady since 2016. However, the rate of unemployment increased by 3%, similar to the province. And actually looking between males and females, the unemployment rate for males barely changed, up 0.1% between census periods, but it more than doubled for female East Hants residents, up from 5.6% in 2016 to 12.1% in 2021. This may be due to a shift out of regular employment and into family caretaker roles throughout the pandemic. A similar trend is also seen at the provincial level. The top 3 occupations held among residents of East Hants were trades, transport, and equipment operators and related, sales and service, and business, finance, and administration. Occupations in East Hants generally follow the trend of the province, although provincially we see more people in sales and service occupations than the trades. 68.8% of employed East Hants residents commute to a different municipality within Nova Scotia or to another province or territory for work. Nearly a third of employed East Hants residents work within the municipality, but the majority of people find their employment elsewhere. And to get there, 95.1% of East Hants residents used a private automobile as their main mode of commuting. As for place of work, As of 2021, 11.4% more people in East Hants labor force were working from home compared to 2016, in large part due to the global pandemic that started in 2020. The number of people in East Hants labor force working from home nearly tripled. In 2021, 17.9% of the employed labor force in East Hants worked from home, up from just 6.5% in 2016. So now we're turning to some of our in-house municipal data. We're looking at development by type. The bulk of the development activity in East Hants is made up of residential permits, which includes new builds, renovations, additions, garages, and other accessory structures. Commercial and industrial related permits make up the next highest proportion of development at 8.9%. These figures are generally consistent with the last study done in 2016, but notably there were a total of 150 more permits issued between 2017 and 2021 compared to the last reported period. Looking at total value of development, the total value of development being added each year has been steadily growing over the last census period, and particularly throughout 2020 and 2021. A significant spike was seen in 2021, where the total value of added development was double that of the 10-year average. And it's notable, you'll see there, we're looking at about 92 million in 2021, and we just have a number for 2022 as well, looking at 138 million. So a significant rise there as well. The majority of development value has been found in the corridor region of East Hants, followed by Uniacke-Rawdon area, and then the Shore Central region has seen the least value, but it experienced a small increase in development in 2021 as well. As for commercial value, by comparison to the last census period, commercial development value being added to the municipality per year has been on the decline. The value in 2018 was half that of 2017. However, due to a few major commercial projects in the corridor, commercial values soared again in 2021. Turning to housing, as of 2021, nearly 70% of multi-unit developments in East Hants had been permitted within the previous 10 years, almost half of which received permits in 2020 or 2021. Residential development has ebbed and flowed steadily over the years, but 2020 and 2021 set new records with 258 and 323 units permitted respectively. Prior to that, the record highs occurred in the mid-1990s, with 1996 seeing 248 new units. Single units saw a significant dip throughout the 2010s, but development continued at a fairly stable pace with a significant boom in 2-unit and multi-unit dwellings. Development of all types took off again starting in 2020. Over the last 30 years, single dwelling units have accounted for approximately 80% of all units created. However, since 2012, that proportion has dropped to 55%. For subdivision plans, the amount of subdivision activity has fluctuated over the last number of years, but there was a recent spike in submissions. In 2021, East Hants received 94 subdivision plans, a number higher than every year since 1991. The corridor in particular has seen a number of large subdivisions, including the ongoing Kiln Creek neighborhood development in Lance. And over the last census period, there were also a number of large subdivision plans submitted for growing neighborhoods found in the Uniacke-Rawdon area. The number of new lots being requested has did drop between 2015 and 2020, which could be a natural lull in development due to less demand, but in more recent years, there's also been an increased focus on the development of multiplex buildings rather than single-unit dwellings on individual lots. That said, in 2021, the municipality saw a sharp upward turn with major subdivision activity in Lance, Elmsdale, Belknap, Lakelands, South Rawdon for future developments of all types. Looking at assessment, residential properties made up the vast majority of East Hants assessment value, followed by commercial, then resource or resource forest properties. East Hants assessment data is broken down into the number of occurrences of each assessment type and the total assessment values for taxable accounts based on the 2021 billing period. And lastly, we'll just look at agriculture. So out of 145 farms in East Hants, 55 are cattle ranching and farming operations, 21 of which are beef farms, and 34 are for dairy production. Other crop farming, which is primarily hay in this area, makes up the next largest, 18% proportion of farms. followed by other animal productions, which is bees, horses, rabbits, etc. Notably, there are no hog farms in East Hants and only about 10 throughout the province. As for farm area and capital, only about 5% of all farm operations in East Hants exceed 1,000 acres in size. The vast majority are under 400 acres. East Hants is a largely rural municipality, and currently active agricultural land makes up just over 11% of the total area. Agriculture continues to play an important role in the economy of the area, and farm capital in 2021 totaled just about 220 million, which is a 27.5% increase since 2016. And that concludes the socioeconomic study. Thank you.
Thank you, Tibby. First up to speak, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Did any part of this deal with homelessness?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this report did not deal with homelessness. I'm not sure that there were any stats from the census on that.
Just curious to see if we have a homeless population that I'm not aware of, that's all. Thank you.
Where there's time still left before lunch, we have item 6 of our council agenda for tonight. It's kind of incorrectly classified there. I'd like to apologize. It's not really a land issue. It's more of a contractual and direction to CAO issue. So we'll be looking for a motion to move in camera.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Being we're now reached a time, almost time for adjournment for lunch, I look for a motion to adjourn for lunch to reconvene at 1:30. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.